Hello and welcome to everything you need to know about World War One. All right, the easiest way to remember the causes that led to World War One is with the acronym MAIN, M-A-I-N. All right, and the M stands for militarism, and that was Europe's militaries or European countries building up their militaries. Between 1890 and 1914, Europe militaries are going to double. The A in Maine stands for alliances, and that was the two main alliances. You had the Triple Alliance, which was Austria, Germany, and Italy, here in red, and then you have the Triple Entente, which is England, or Great Britain on this map, France, and Russia. All right, so you can see these guys were kind of in the middle, and then they have them surrounded. All right, so those are the three big alliances. And then we have imperialism as the I of Maine, and that was the race for the remaining territories. All right, so after 1880, there wasn't a lot of land, like in Africa and Asia, for the countries to imperialize. So it created a lot of tension fighting over these last bits of land that hadn't been previously imperialized during the Industrial Revolution era. And then last is nationalism, and that was for a couple places. First, here we see Serbia. Serbia, the Serbs, they wanted to be independent from the Ottoman Empire. All right, yeah, this whole area is called the Balkan area. All right, and so because of this Balkanization, people that wanted to be separate from this Ottoman Empire, which was here in present-day Turkey, and then taking up all this land. All right, so a place like Serbia, Greece had already fought their independence, if you remember, during the last time period. But they wanted to break away. And then also the Slavic people that were part of Austria-Hungary, they wanted to be separate. In Russia, which is here, they are also Slavic people, and they supported Austria-Hungary's Slavic people that wanted to be separate from Austria-Hungary. All right, the main event that's going to spark the war to start is the assassination of the Archduke Ferdinand of Austria. All right, and his assassination was carried out by a member of the Serbian nationalist group. All right, so here's a picture of the guy that assassinated him. All right, so after that happened, Austria-Hungary here, they declared war on Serbia. All right. And so because all of those alliances, it caused a domino effect with the other countries all getting involved, right? Russia is going to mobilize their army to kind of help their Slavic brothers, Serbia. So Germany declares war on Russia. So then they're going to have to declare war on France, Germany, because Russia and Germany had the alliance. All right. And so now, since war was declared on both of them, Great Britain, they declare war on Germany because they had the alliance with France and Russia. All right, see, there were still a couple countries that remained neutral. Spain stayed out of the war. Switzerland, they always stay neutral. All right, Netherlands, etc. So these places all kind of stayed neutral during the war. All right, the Ottoman Empire is going to join on the side of the Central Powers. Germany, realizing that they were surrounded now by fighting one side with France and the other side with Russia, they came up with the Schlieffen Plan. All right, and that plan was to attack France through Belgium and take out Paris, and to do that quickly and then focus their full attention on defeating Russia. So they thought they kind of attacked France first, then that would be help them to win. But however, it's going to fail, because what's going to happen is it's going to turn into a stalemate. And what's going to happen during World War One is they're going to start what's called trench warfare. All right, so they're going to build in these trenches, and then it's pretty hard to take over another group once they have made these trenches. And so the trench warfare is going to cause this long stalemate between the two sides. All right, here's a good map to show kind of what was going on in Europe. All right, you see there were battles coming this way from the Central Powers into Russia. All right, this dotted line here shows the farthest they advanced into Russia. All right, and then the same, it gives you a little close up here of the fighting with Germany as they went in through Belgium, right, and attacking into France. All right, see there was a couple other battles here, Austria-Hungary advancing into the Balkan region as well. Another thing of note is here, Britain they're going to set up a naval blockade. All right, and so what their plan was to stop. All right, their plan was to try to stop supply ships from coming into Germany. All right, try to stop them from getting more supplies. All right, because this war is going to be what is known as a war of attrition, meaning both sides just trying to outlast the other side. Because of the trench warfare, it was hard to advance, further into the country. So really, they were just trying to wait each other out to see who could last the longest. So Britain thought if they blockaded them, they wouldn't be able to get more supplies and foods and things like that from their colonies, which would help to cause Germany to surrender. All right, but you see, Germany, they built up their navy too before the war. All right, and so in this blue area, right, that was where their submarines were, and their submarines were going through trying to take out the British blockade ships and things like that. All right, next is a good clip to show you about the trench warfare. All right, as you can see, the men, the soldiers would be running across. This land in between the two trenches is known as no man's land. All right, and so they're running over. You see they got the barbed wire set up. You got your first front line of trench, so there would be people here shooting out at these guys as they're running over. And then you have your machine gun here, kind of shooting people down. All right, you got your long-range artillery that would be flying or shooting like mortars at the people as they're running over. Like that's what these craters are from. It's from like the large shells hitting. All right. Here's another look at the trench warfare. You can see these guys standing kind of in mud. All right, so a lot of people that are going to die during World War I are going to be killed, not just from the battle, from being shot, but the disease. All right, it's going to be a lot of disease and things like that that are going to run in these trenches. All right, here's another look, guys, in the trenches. More trench warfare. All right, World War I is known as a global war, all right? And the reason why it's a global war is because the main countries fighting had colonies. And so the colonies were pulled into the wars as well. And from the colonies, they would get things such as soldiers, laborers to come work in their factories while the war was going on. The men were off fighting. They would also get raw materials and loans. All right, so that's why that British blockade was important, trying to stop that. But fighting also occurred not just in Europe. All right, fighting is going to occur in the Middle East. All right, here in the Middle East, it's going to happen in Africa, and it's also going to happen in the Pacific Ocean. All right, so fighting is going to happen around the world. The biggest thing that this fighting around the world does is it ends Europeans' claim to being superior. All right, when the soldiers are fighting next to these Europeans or even killing some of these Europeans in the war, right, they realize that they're not superior to them. All right, and so that is going to be one of the biggest things that's going to come out of this war for the colonies, is that the Europeans aren't superior. During the war, the Europeans are going to be so preoccupied with the war, they're going to give some Western educated leaders in their colonies roles in government. But after the war, the Europeans try to take it over again. And this is what's going to really lead to this first wave of decolonization, all right, of the colonies trying to separate themselves, because they're going to be upset that the Europeans tried to, take them back over after they gave them some power. But second, because they see that they can run it all by themselves without the Europeans. India was the most involved colony during this war. They sent 1.3 million soldiers to fight. They gave a lot of money and supplies. And the Gandhi and the other leaders in India, they actually supported the war. And they supported it because they hoped to get their independence afterwards. And a lot of European countries actually promised their colonies that they would get independence if they did support them during the war. And then once the war was over and they didn't get their independence, that's what's going to cause this big conflict for decolonization. Japan's going to also enter the war, and they're going to enter the war on the side of the Triple Entente, right, with England, France, and Russia. And Japan enters the war because they hope to take over some of the German colonies in the Pacific and in China. Japan sees this as their chance to really assert themselves here in the Pacific Ocean. And Japan's going to put pressure on China, and that's going to lead to China collapsing and eventually having their own revolution. Here's a look at some of the colonial soldiers coming from around different countries coming to fight, right? Such as India, Chinese troops, African troops. All right, so here on the eastern side of the war, the side with Russia, Russian forces are going to exhibit many of the weaknesses that resulted in them having the highest level of casualties in the war. All right, Russia's going to send millions of mostly illiterate and poor peasants to fight. And this poor showing, when Russia gets crushed in this war by Germany, is very big embarrassment to Russia, and it's going to really start to lead to that Russian Revolution in 1917. They realize that they need to get rid of the Tsar system in Russia and change things. A big event that's going to happen during this war is the Armenian genocide, which often gets overlooked. But there was a group of Armenians that were Christians, and they were blamed for why the Ottoman Empire was losing the war. All right, so it was carried out during the World War I. It was the Ottoman government attempting to exterminate its minority Armenian subjects in like current day Turkey. It's estimated between 800,000 and 1.5 million were killed. All right, the first phase of the killing was all able-bodied males were executed, and then a lot of the women, children, the elderly, they were forced on these death marches where they would walk through the Syrian desert. Today, Turkey, who took over for the Ottoman Empire, they deny that it was a genocide, but it's still debated today whether it was a systematic killing and a genocide. World War I is known as a total war, and that's because countries had to devote all their resources to the war effort. Some things that consist of a total war is countries having a draft, meaning they get people over the age of 18, men drafted into the war to go fight. They control the government controls the economy and industry, so they make sure the industry produces things for the war. They ration out food. All right, so here's a look at ration cards. These are from Germany, but also if you look at the United States, right? So you were supposed to ration your food. Some days you have certain days where you could go get like milk or other supplies because they were trying to make sure the soldiers got food. Also, you have propaganda posters, all right, like this one, all right, to promote the war in your country. Women, children, and minorities were expected to hold down the home front, right? So here's women working in the factory, all right, probably making ammunition or something like that for the war. So the women participate in the labor force and in these factory jobs while men were gone gave women a lot of encouragement. And it helped the women to push for better wages. And this confidence sparked the movement for women's rights, all right, including voting. The United States, they actually don't enter the war until 1915. All right, the first event that's going to get us to kind of start leaning towards the war is when the Lusitania, the ship here, when it gets sunk. It was sunk by German submarines, but there were Americans on the boat. But the Germans believed that we were trying to get supplies to Britain. All right, so that was the first strike. The next strike is going to be in 1917 when we get the Zimmerman Note. And that was a letter that's supposed to be Germany sending a letter to Mexico asking for them to ally with us, or with Germany, just in case we try to fight the war, that Mexico would declare war on the United States. All right, but in 1918, it's going to start to be the end of the war. First, Russia withdraws. And then by November, Germany is going to surrender. All right, it was a war of attrition, and Germany couldn't last anymore. All right, so they just waited each other out. And then in 1919, they're going to sign the treaty. But if you look at the huge number of casualties, all right, on the sides, Russia, even though they didn't last as long, they had the biggest number of allies on this side because of their poor fighting techniques. You can see the huge number that Germany had. All right, so that's it. Barely under the 15 minutes, but we made it again. All right, see you in class.